Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I'm going to go ahead and skip the rest of the intro because I have to go back to work soon, and I just want to rant for a minute or two or three or four. We'll see how this goes. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. Feel free to disagree with me on anything I may say. I have some things to say about the Biden administration, specifically in regards to the reports. The report on the classified documents. That is right. Yesterday, a report was released. Special counsel, not pursuing prosecution of Joe Biden, but that's not good enough for him because he wants only positive things to be said about him. I was just at work, as I am every day, and I was listening to the White House press briefing, or shall I say propaganda briefing, and the propaganda secretary, Jean-Pierre, along with Ian Sams, well, they were making many excuses in regards to Joe Biden's lack of memory. I know, it seems at this point, at least to me, that in the coming election, the 2024 election, we will be choosing between a clown and a corpse. I'm not liking what I'm looking at. I'm not here to defend Donald Trump. I'm not. I voted for the man. I don't plan to do so again. Not because I think Joe Biden is a better option. I mean, I think he's a worse option in many senses. But to each their own. And you can convince me if I'm wrong. But I will say, although I do not feel obligated to waste my vote on anyone who I do not feel deserves my vote at this point, aside from any lesser of two evils type of argument, I understand the appeal for many, if not most, Republicans who will vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden, as I did previously. I understand. I do. Now, I'm not on board with this notion that we should continue to lower the bar by voting for people who are less than deserving. Not that card-carrying members of the MAGA community believe that Trump is undeserving. But I'm just saying, our options are less than ideal. Like, even if you support Donald Trump, you have to admit that he has many issues. Of course, at the same time, if you are a card-carrying member, it is likely in large part due to the fact that you have in straying so far from Trump derangement syndrome, have become a member of the Trump attachment syndrome community, and therefore you may not see or at least acknowledge any of Trump's endless issues. I say that Trump is the biggest whataboutism Democrats have ever had. He is. Because, here's where I'm going with this, Joe Biden's greatest attribute at this point is that he's not Donald Trump. There you have it. So, in addition to being the one president or candidate whom Joe Biden has been able to defeat after running various times for election in the past, keep in mind that he eventually won at such an elderly age only when he was running against Donald Trump because of all of Donald Trump's vulnerabilities, which are not exactly few and far between. But because Joe Biden has so many of those himself, I don't know who is going to win. I have no idea. I have a hard time believing that voter turnout will surpass where it was last time. I know some argue that that high number was because of some form of interference or another, which I will not get into for various reasons. But, I don't see the appeal for either of the two candidates. It could be that Donald Trump, after receiving all of this news about indictments, 90-plus charges, so on and so forth, he will have grown in popularity so much so that he will receive more votes than last time, which would have been a record if not for the fact that Joe Biden received even more votes. But I don't see either Donald Trump or Joe Biden receiving more votes than they did last time. Okay, seeing as how Joe Biden came out on top last time, he would have to lose more votes than Donald Trump is inevitably going to lose, at least in my mind, in order for... I mean, he would have to lose more votes than Donald Trump to cover that difference, and therefore lose to Donald Trump. And I say that I have a hard time seeing Donald Trump win because although his base may be growing louder, I don't technically see them as having grown larger. I just don't. Among Republican voters who most likely voted for Trump in the past, well, they may be just as likely to vote for Trump as ever, although I think he is going to lose some of them, especially after all of his divisiveness towards other Republican candidates and such. He's not exactly a unifying figure, although he is now claiming to be. I feel like Donald Trump is going to lose some votes around the edges of the Republican Party, in addition to gaining no Democrat voters whatsoever. I mean, unless we're talking about, I don't know, Meek Mill or some of these rappers who are suddenly feeling the urge to endorse Donald Trump. I could be wrong. It could be that Trump will gain more around the fringes than he has lost around the fringes, especially if Joe Biden continues to lose popularity. And although I say I have a hard time seeing Donald Trump winning, I also have a hard time seeing Joe Biden winning. That's why I am kind of stuck in limbo right now. I don't know, aside from the fact that I'm not planning on voting for either of those two candidates, or likely any candidate, RFK Jr. included. In my own interpretations, my own speculations, though I'm not really one to predict, I have a hard time making a prediction. I do. Especially at this trajectory, when to me 5 minutes ago, it was looking like, hey, Joe Biden could very well win again. Again, considering all of Trump's vulnerabilities. Even, for example, Democrats who voted in open primaries for Nikki Haley, thus displaying their displeasure. Well, not displaying their displeasure in Joe Biden so much as displaying their desire to vote for a Republican in an open primary in order to rig the Republican field against Donald Trump. Of course, that's not really going to play out. Nikki Haley is going to be an epic fail in the end, and it's going to be, aside from any prevention of Trump from being on the ballot, which, according to the arguments in the Supreme Court yesterday, that's not likely going to happen. So, to Trump's advantage, he will likely be the nominee of the Republican Party, and he will be in the running. Debate or no debate. Ooh, nightmare that will be if it happens. But I'm just saying, even those Democrats, those independents, those open primary voters who would like to lean away from Joe Biden to a certain extent, maybe giving us the perception that Nikki Haley or someone of that nature could steal votes away from Joe Biden if she were to be the nominee for the Republicans. I think that if she were, they would just switch back to voting for Joe Biden, because many of them are just trying to rig the field in the first place just to keep Donald Trump. And that, if anything, is indicative of how there's just as much animosity, in some cases derangement, towards Donald Trump as ever before. So I don't think that just because some rappers, some people around the edges, some fringe voters or non-voters are now endorsing or at least leaning towards endorsing Donald Trump. I know Charlemagne the God has been turned off to the Biden administration. People like that, they could sway some votes. They could. It may just sway them to RFK Jr. or someone, or no one, in my case. But after all of that is said and done, I didn't really give Trump much of a chance, or at least not as much of a chance to win the election against Joe Biden until this report came out. Now, this report about classified documents case, well, non-case, investigation, I should say, despite finding that Joe Biden didn't do anything worth prosecuting, or at least he's too old and forgetful to be worth prosecuting. Well, just that, what I just said was in the report. giving many people many reasons to be even more weary than ever when it comes to voting for Joe Biden. Because indeed, he is Sleepy Joe. He is a corpse. And if a report put together by essentially an employee of his own Justice Department is finding that he is unfit to stand trial, then now the American people have more reasons than ever to believe that he is unfit to stand as the sitting president. And I hope I'm making sense out of all of this. Long story short, although I've gone on for 10 minutes already in my ranting and rambling, however long ago it was, approximately a year ago, there's the news, well, a year give or take, about Donald Trump and his classified documents, which he had kept at Mar-a-Lago. Now, I'm once again not defending Trump here. In fact, this is the one case which I will not at all defend Donald Trump in, unless you can give me a reason to. As far as I'm concerned, there has been evidence, though the case is not done deal, there's been evidence that he has lied about his handling of the aforementioned classified documents. And I think that there very well could be a prosecution of some sort at some point before or after the election. Depends on whether or not he ends up the president with some sort of presidential immunity. Yada, 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 bing, bang, boom. But I'm just saying, I'm not obfuscating Trump's responsibility here. But at the time when this news broke, way back when, Joe Biden was talking about how irresponsible Donald Trump was. Joe Biden was talking about how irresponsible Donald Trump was for having classified documents. Not too long after that, we discovered, through what seemed like leaks, that Joe Biden himself had classified documents. And the information was slow rolled out. They didn't really want to talk about it. They only seemed to talk about it once the leakage and the headlines began to make their ways around, if not mainstream media, well, social media especially. I know MSM is largely in the tank for the Biden administration. So at that time, after all of their bashing of Donald Trump, they were somewhat reluctant to bash Joe Biden for having classified documents. But the news got around, and it turned out that he had classified documents stored not just one place, but two places, which now he just blames on his staff. Joe Biden is absolving himself from all responsibility, apparently. Apparently when it comes to him, it's not irresponsible. It's, if anything, at most, it's the responsibility of his staffers, which they won't tell us the names of, or whether or not those staffers are working for him till this day. There was a report because there was an investigation. Special counsel, I'll just use the word prosecutor, though there's not going to be a prosecution in the end, released the report as of yesterday, as I already mentioned. And it found that either it just wasn't worth pursuing charges against Joe Biden, or he didn't technically do anything illegal, and therefore he should not be in jail. Now, I'm not saying that he, as an 80-year-old man, should be in jail. If he has to be in jail, then I imagine some other government officials have to be in jail as well, because he's not exactly the only one to have classified documents, as I already discussed. Throw Mike Pence's name in there as well. But in this report were many references to Joe Biden's age, cognitive capabilities or lack thereof, his memory or lack thereof. For example, he couldn't remember in his 5-hour-long interview with the aforementioned investigation team when he was vice president. He could not remember when he became vice president or when he left office, only to enter office once again as president a few years later, a few years older, and more forgetful than ever. And it's just a bad look for him. It is, when he can't remember when he was vice president, and yet now he's running for re-election as the president. Not a good look for Joe Biden. It's not a good look for Joe Biden when he can't remember, even within a few years of range, when his son, Beau Biden, died. I know. It's a gut puncher. I don't mean any ill will towards Joe Biden, considering such a sensitive topic. It's so sensitive, in fact, that Joe Biden talks about it on a regular basis, which makes it all the more concerning if he can't remember when it happened. Now, whenever a soldier dies and he has to talk to the family, he says, I understand how you're feeling because my son died. You know the story. You know the thing. You know the thing. Very bad thing happened. And I am not trying to take that lightly. It's just that I feel that Joe Biden takes it lightly and uses it for his political advantages, according to narrative. Keep in mind that Joe Biden doesn't exactly refer to his living son all that much. Why, you might wonder? Well, funny you should wonder. Funny you should ask. Because Hunter Biden, the living son, whom Joe Biden has claimed for years and years, never did anything wrong, does indeed have charges on him. Not exactly the most convenient talking point. So, he talks about what is a convenient talking point, and that is what gives him this persona of empathy, right? And relatability. The death of his son, Beau Biden. So that's what he talks about. He talks about it a lot, and yet he can't remember when it happened. This is mentioned in the report, and now Kamala Harris, after Joe Biden's disastrous, unexpected press conference from yesterday, Kamala Harris says not only that is the report gratuitous, it is politically motivated. She called the report a political attack. So, the prosecutor, the team who did the investigating here, put this report together, whoever was involved, according to Kamala Harris, though they were essentially acquired by the Biden administration's Justice Department, they are politically motivated and therefore are politically attacking Joe Biden because they want him to lose the election. Keep in mind, they're simultaneously saying, look at the report. Look at the report. Look at the conclusion of the report and the fact that Joe Biden is not having charges pursued. Okay, so look at the report. It's very thorough. It absolves Joe Biden from his responsibility, from criminality at least. Also, don't look at the report because it's detached from reality. This is what Joe Biden has said. This is what Kamala Harris has said. This is what Ian Sams has said. This is what Karine Jean-Pierre has said. All that in a bag of chips. They have said, look at the report. It's accurate, but also don't look at the report. It's not accurate. They're saying it's detached from reality. They're saying that it's not living in reality. That's what they're saying. That's ridiculous. Okay? They're having their cake and eating it too. They're trying to have it both ways. Go figure. I was listening to Karine Jean-Pierre just before I came on my lunch break. And I must say, one of the funniest things I heard her say in defense of Joe Biden, in response to a question about his botching of names. Because, for example, in the press conference yesterday, the unexpected press conference in which he defended himself very emphatically, him and his cognitive capabilities, him and his memory, or lack thereof, he went on to take a question at the very end about Israel/Gaza and then proceeded to confuse Egypt with Mexico. Yeah. He said that the president of Egypt was the president of Mexico. It happens. I'm just saying you got to take that into account when the whole point of his press conference is to defend himself and his mind, only for him to have some slippage. I may have done that myself. In this very show, this very recording, and I've said quite a bit, I've been going on for longer than Joe Biden went on in his press conference. I may have said something inaccurate. I may have botched something. And I will go back and listen to it, and I will make any corrections I can or add a comment in the comment section below. I meant to say blank instead of blank. I do that often because it bothers me when I botch something. Of course, I'm not the president of the United States. I don't have canned talking points that I have no reason to botch. And also, Joe Biden's entire take on all of this, overall is that if he has been around a while, it just means that he's super duper wise and therefore knows exactly what he's talking about. More so than anyone else. He says he's the most qualified to be president of anyone in the country, I guess. Well. So Joe Biden, and I'll get back to Karine Jean-Pierre's answer in a second. Joe Biden's take is, well, jokes about his age, how old he is, how he is friends with people, or at least was friends with people who lived like thousands of years ago. You know, he jokes about his own age. He says, 180 years ago when I got into politics, blah, blah, blah. You know, taking it very lightly, speaking of taking it lightly. That's fine. But then he also turns around and acts like he's not old. Or at least, although he's incapable of actually acting like he's not old, he says he's fit as a fiddle, quick as a whip. All according to the script. He pretends that there is no slippage. Like he's not getting more forgetful. He's not losing his mind. He's not losing his marbles. Sorry, my cat is in my lap distracting me. That's what he said in his press conference yesterday. He said, no, I'm not becoming more forgetful as I get older. During his time in office, he would have us believe that there has been absolutely no wear and tear. And that he's as quick as ever. Quick on his feet, or at least, metaphorically speaking. Since, Joe Biden running is like the most non-Tom Cruise run ever having been run or ran. I worded that very poorly, but think of Tom Cruise running, and Joe Biden is the exact inverse of that, the exact opposite of that. He takes off for a run, gets about 2 steps, and then he's done running. So that's Joe Biden. He's more likely to fall than to actually run. He has fallen many times, but that's neither here nor there. Well, actually, it is here, and it is very relevant, despite the claims to the contrary. Okay, so yeah. In his own words, he's super duper old. So old, in fact, that it's funny, that it's hilarious, that it's worth joking about. But also, not old. He's not old. Don't worry about him. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here. He might have 10 slip-ups a day, 20 slip-ups a day, 30 slip-ups a day. And there still should be nothing to say about it. No criticism whatsoever should be said in an official report based upon official findings or whatever the case may be. There should be no criticism whatsoever. Only positive. No negativity. Don't bring that negative energy around here. Not when it comes to Joe Biden's age. Not when it comes to Joe Biden's memory or lack thereof. So back to Karine Jean-Pierre. She was asked about him botching, the Israel/Gaza answer and confusing Egypt and Mexico. And she decided to read a headline from a report. Trying to remember, was it Wall Street Journal? I don't remember which outlet it was, but there was a headline, something to the effect of, Joe Biden has always been known to botch names. So this was her excuse. Her excuse for Joe Biden botching names was, well, according to these headlines, Joe Biden has always been known to botch names. He has always been known to gaffe. That was her defense of Joe Biden. That's not exactly comforting, is it? When you're talking about the President of the United States and how many slip-ups he has, how many gaffes. Okay, saying he's always had a lot of gaffes, that's not a good defense. If anything, that just shows that he probably shouldn't be president in the first place. Just saying, shouldn't be president in the first place. But he's running again at a very, very overly ripe old age. Running for his position as the resident of the United States of America. Rotus, not POTUS. And here we are. So yeah, hilarious stuff coming from the Biden administration. They're somewhat contradicting themselves because some of them are willing to go further than others. Kamala Harris, as I already mentioned, straight up saying that this report was politically motivated. I wonder if she has even read the full report, or she's just referring to like certain parts, the parts that should not be in there according to them. She questioned the integrity of the report. She questioned the integrity of the prosecutor, of the special counsel. She, questioned anyone and everyone's integrity except for her own and that of her own president. Shall I say resident? Because heaven forbid anyone ever infer from all of this that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the ones who lack some integrity. Heaven forbid. It's everyone else's fault. Everyone else's responsibility. Throw the staffers under the bus in this case. And I'm not saying that Joe Biden belongs in jail. I get the sense that there is some hypocrisy involved, some two-tier justice system standard involved when Donald Trump has 40 charges on him in this one indictment alone and is facing up to 450 years in prison, something like that. Not saying that's going to be what's given to him. Maximum usually isn't, but that's what we're talking about. In his case. In Joe Biden's case, well, there is no case. It's a done deal. Yesterday, shortly after the report was released, he gave a speech early on, unrelated to the report. He talked briefly about it. He said, it's a done deal. They concluded that no reason to prosecute, no reason to pursue charges against me. I didn't do anything wrong. It's a done deal. Okay. Shortly after, he clearly saw headlines about his memory. Yeah. He did not like what he saw or heard. He did not like the headlines, what they were implying about his fitness. And maybe he wanted to get ahead of this narrative that if he's not fit to stand trial, he's not fit to sit as president. And so he had an unexpected press conference. And that I want to briefly discuss because not a lot of transparency on the part of the Biden administration when it comes to press conferences. He doesn't get out there and take questions on a regular basis. When he does, it's very scripted. He has a list of people he can take questions from because don't want him to get caught up in a tight squeeze, having to answer for questions that they aren't prepared for, which don't fit his canned talking points. Often he'll have answers written down on paper for him to read in response to people's questions. That should tell you something. No surprise considering he gets lost just trying to get off the stage. But I'm just saying, for you to go so long without being willing to just answer the questions authentically, transparently, only to get up there on a whim, specifically to defend yourself. It's a bad look. It just makes you look very self-interested, very self-entitled. You're like, year after year, or at least month after month after month. And at this point, yeah, year after year after year. Even members of the press corps, as sympathetic as they are towards Joe Biden, generally speaking, they're like, hey, when is he going to come out here and answer questions from us? Never? Okay, so after all that time of bobbing and weaving, he's like, you know what? Time to answer some questions. I'm going to get out there just to defend myself because I cannot handle any criticism about me. So that's what he did. He criticized the report because getting off scot-free without even a slap on the wrist was not good enough for him. He cannot have a single negative word said about him. And that's my biggest issue with all this. I get if you don't like some things that are said about you as the president of the United States. But the fact that Joe Biden seems to think that he's a saint, and his entire administration seems to think that he's a saint. Okay, they think that their opposition is practically Satan. They think he belongs in jail for the rest of his life. They think he's a raging dictator, and I get that Donald Trump says some things that a dictator would say. Not that he's going to do anything about it. Donald Trump didn't the first time around. He's not going to the second time around. He's just not. He likes being popular too much. Good luck with that. But they give him no benefits of the doubt whatsoever. They have only negative things to say about Donald Trump, about extreme MAGA Republicans. They have only positive things to say about their own party, or at least the top of the ticket. No criticism whatsoever is allowed. It's not the job description of press/propaganda secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. It is her job description to say only positive things about her boss, which is indeed propagandistic. Sad to say, that's where we're at. But hey, that's where it is for pretty much every administration at this point. You get up there on the stage, you take questions, no matter how critical they are and how legitimate they are, you just say positive things about your boss. That's all you do. Over and over and over again. It's so disingenuous. And I can't stand it, but it's very amusing. But yeah, they're so over the top in their defense of themselves. So, they would have us believe Joe Biden, despite being so old that he jokes about his age, has nothing wrong with him. Absolutely nothing. No slippage, no loss of memory. Although they will simultaneously admit, well, he's always been gaffing. And that's, previous gaffes are the defense for his current gaffes. Okay, that's stupid, self-contradicting, but hey, they're just flailing at this point. Overall, their point is, despite all of the unpopularity polls suggesting that American voters, American citizens as a whole, but even Democrats are very much concerned about Joe Biden's age and what he's got going on up there. They pretend otherwise. So, I could say that Joe Biden, in defense of himself in his very fiery press conference yesterday, he said that it was just the press's prerogative. That it's just a perception that certain members of the press have. That's not true. And if he actually thinks that, he's disconnected from reality. He has no self-awareness. No, a lot of people, general population, not just pundits, have these concerns, Democrats included. So, they shrug all of that off. And I don't know if they really believe what they're saying, or if they're just saying it because, again, they're propagandists. But either way, it's so over the top. They're so over the top in their defense. So, yeah, nothing to be worried about, according to them, when it comes to Joe Biden, his age, acuity. That's a word, right? He did absolutely nothing wrong in the handling of classified documents. He wasn't even irresponsible, even though he said that Donald Trump was. If anyone gets the blame, it's just his unnamed staff members. Although he denied having classified documents stored in certain places. Well, I won't say that he denied. He just said that they were all under lock and key. Not really the case. He had classified documents in his garage in battered and beaten boxes, cardboard boxes. So that was a lie on the part of Joe Biden. That's what he said yesterday. He said they were all under lock and key. Not really the case. Not really the case. But ask Ian Sams about that. Ask Karine Jean-Pierre about that. What will they tell you? Well, they won't tell you that he was wrong. They won't tell you that he was inaccurate or that he was lying. No, sir. No, sirree. They'll just say, I can't add anything to what the president said. I can't add anything. I think things are being misinterpreted. Things are being misreported. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So everyone is lacking integrity except for them. Everyone is misleading except for them, according to them. They won't admit to anything. They won't take responsibility for anything. The buck does not actually stop with them. Definitely not with him. Joe Biden, that is. So, he's fit as a fiddle, quick as a whip. That's what they'd have us believe. He's running for re-election. Running as fast and as far as ever, despite being incapable of running. I just, I feel that people who are so over the top are the type of people who would pee on your leg and tell you it's raining. That's just what it comes down to. You know, for all of Donald Trump's exaggerations, the opposition party is no better. They're not. Because the son, the living son of the President of the United States, is everything that Democrats like to call Trump. Everything. They won't criticize Hunter Biden. They pretend like he never did anything wrong. Well, many Democrats will now say that he did something wrong. Joe Biden, not so much. He has maintained for years and years and years that his son never did anything wrong. That his son was the smartest man he knows. And if Joe Biden actually believes that, it tells you all you need to know about him. But Biden family, they can do any number of things wrong. Unethical or illegal. Either way. And they'll maintain that they never did anything wrong. That is over the top. Those are people who will pee on your leg and tell you that it's raining. So no, Joe Biden is not honest. He's not a healer. He's not. If anyone needs to be healed, it's him and his, we're seeing him fall apart in front of our very eyes, despite their incoherent claims about his competency. And it's all very frustrating to watch. Once again, bringing me back to the fact that we have a corpse and a clown to decide between. It's pretty much a crime scene. Yeah. Sad. Sad to say, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it like it is. I'm going to tell it like it is. And you feel free to disagree with me. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. I didn't mean to go on for so long. Nearly 40 minutes of rambling, of ranting. But that's just what I felt like saying, so I'll be back at some point to say more in one form or fashion. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I've just been listening to so much in my headphones while working. And yesterday after work, when Joe Biden unexpectedly pushed back against the press in his press conference. But, yeah. Life goes on. World keeps spinning. So do all of the spinsters in the news cycle. But right now, I am optimistic to a certain extent after so many members of the White House press corps pushed back against the White House's narrative. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Peace.